so hopefully this doesn't come as a surprise to you guys. I'm a man of the people. So when I read your comments and hear what you guys want me to do, I'm going to do it. So let's get into some of my guilty pleasures from my physical media collection. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Nick here from the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm here to give you another installment in a series a lot of you seem to be enjoying. I've been covering some of the best movies and some of the worst movies I own in my collection. And I got a comment asking me to do some of my guilty pleasures. And I said, oh, I have terrible takes. People meme me all the time for movies I like. So this is perfect. So before we get into it, make sure to leave a like on this video, comment down below when it's over, and I want to hear what you think of these movies, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So without further ado, the first guilty pleasure I pulled off of my shelves is Jennifer's Body. Now, you don't see people talk about this movie like on the level they would of some of these classic horror films because this is more of a cult movie. It came out and it kind of came and went, but when it came out, Megan Fox was kind of at her peak, and I've always really enjoyed this movie. Now, yeah, sure, okay, because Megan Fox is in it and I was a teenager when it came out, that definitely plays a role in it. But I've always really liked the movie. I feel like it's just like a really schlocky, kind of throwback, fun movie. It's one of those movies where you don't really have to overthink anything, you just go for a good time. Is there some shoddy CGI and dialogue in the movie? Yeah, of course. But at the end of the day, this movie is really, really fun. Beautiful women, great kills, and it just doesn't take itself seriously. And I love that about this movie. Also, I just won't stand for anybody saying that Megan Fox is bad in this movie because the role she's asked to play, she nails it. As the kids would say, she ate this shit up. Jennifer's Body rules, and it's one of my top guilty pleasures. Next up is a movie I've had a really weird relationship with in my life, and it's been like that for a while, though I feel like I've finally settled on where I stand with this movie. It's a guilty pleasure, and that's Freddy vs. Jason. Look, I loved this movie when it came out, because this movie pitted two horror icons up against each other. It was super fun, it was super engaging, it was really nicely paced, it went along great. You just had a really good time watching this movie. Then I became more cynical in my early adulthood, and I was like, oh, there's not enough Freddy. Freddy doesn't get any kills. This is BS. Oh, this kind of betrays Jason and Freddy in a lot of ways. And now, as an almost 30-year-old, I'm like, it's fun. The movie is fun. It does exactly what it needs to do. Are the characters in the movie pretty much bad? Yes. Like, nobody really is a standout in this movie. I do like Monica Potter. Like, she's fine. But like most of the kids here, they're just fodder. You don't really care. Am I still bummed that Freddy gets, what, one kill? Yeah, I'm pretty freaking bummed about that. Not gonna lie. But at the end of the day, it's a fun movie. You know, when you're pitting two icons against each other, and I talked about this in a previous video, when it comes to versus movies, at least be entertaining, at least be fun, and at least give the people what they're there to see. These two duke it out. Freddy versus Jason, it does that. So I've settled on it now. It's a guilty pleasure. I know a lot of people have a lot of disdain for this movie, and a lot of people love this movie, and I'm someone that's just kind of in the middle. I have a good time with it. Sometimes I'm ashamed to admit it, sometimes I'm not. You're a guilty pleasure. And in keeping with the theme of the last movie, as well as my previous video, the next one is Alien vs. Predator. This one is actually fun. Look, everything I said about Freddy vs. Jason can pretty much be directly applied here. The movie is technically not a great movie. Like, there are issues here. There's issues with writing. There's definitely some problems with some of the characters and their motivations. But you get to see aliens and predators fight each other. You get to see great action sequences. You really just have a good time. Again, if you're making a versus movie, the only thing you have to achieve, you don't even have to really worry about all the stuff that's on the periphery. The only thing you really have to achieve is the movie fun? Do people enjoy it? Is it giving them what they're asking for, which is this versus this? I hate when a versus movie is called versus and you hardly get any interaction between whoever you're pitting against each other. Not in this movie. You get that in spades. And that is why I've always liked this movie. Now, it is nowhere near on the level of some of the Predator or Alien films when it comes to just quality. Some of those films are truly great films. This is not that. But it is a lot of fun. Next one is one you can already see right here in the frame before I've even held the movie up. Some of you have probably already deduced what that is. It's Child's Play 3. Now, I loved this movie when I was a kid. I had no complaints with the first 3 films at all, and Bride of Chucky. Like, I loved all 4 of those movies growing up. There were no complaints. The only complaint I really had with Child's Play 3 was that it wasn't Alex Vincent. But I understood it, and I accepted it as years went on. This is one of those movies in the Child's Play series that, like, you hear everybody talk about the original. You hear everybody talk about 2. You hear everybody talk about Bride. This is a damn good movie. Like, this is a really, really fun time. Now, I'm not going to say it's great, because it's not. There are a lot of issues with this movie. That is why this falls in the guilty pleasures category. Because there are definitely things about this movie that you're like, that's a little lesser than the previous 2 movies we got. Having said that, though, this movie, like, is a blast from start to finish. You've got some truly contemptible characters that you can't wait to see die. You get Chucky just creating, like, mayhem. He's just mischievous throughout this movie, and I love that. And you get an awesome third act and, like, a carnival. What more could you want? It's like this haunted house carnival, I don't even know, fair, festival, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. It's freaking awesome. This movie, with all of its warts, gets Chucky right, it does the kills right, and it's just a good time. So yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. Now this next one's probably going to create some waves because a lot of people didn't like this movie when it came out. But hear me out. Jurassic World Dominion. Now, let me just say, okay, let me state my piece here. I am an easy lay for the Jurassic Park franchise. Period. There's not a single movie in the franchise that I find to be truly bad. The worst one, in my opinion, is The Lost World, and it's still, at times, enjoyable. Most of it, not so much, but it has a few redeeming qualities. So I'm an easy lay when it comes to dinosaurs. Like, I always have been. I'm also an easy lay when you bring back the original people, and you merge them into a world that I've already really grown to like. Jurassic World is a really fun movie. It's a blast. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I love that film. So I really got attached to Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt's characters. So to bring in Dr. Grant, to bring in Ian Malcolm, and to bring in Ellie Sattler into that world, it was awesome. I loved it. And I love how this movie is like Laura Dern and Sam Neill's movie. Like, it's not even Chris Pratt's movie. It's more their movie, and I like that a lot. Now, I do not love this movie. Absolutely not. There are a ton of flaws with this movie. And first and foremost is just the plot. It's really weird, and it didn't really go the way that anybody would have expected or wanted it to. Giant locusts and like biosyn and like what? Like, what are we doing here? Having said that, though, I have a really good time with this movie. There's a lot of stuff about this movie that I find really fun. It is the weakest of the 3. Like, it is just bar none the weakest of the Jurassic World trilogy. But I'm an easy lay for dinosaurs, and you brought the OGs back that I grew up with, and the Giganotosaurus is badass. Although we should have gotten more of it, but whatever. So yeah, leave it alone. Next up is a fun summertime watch, and that is Shark Night, or also known as Shark Night 3D. Look, this was a movie that came out in the mid-2010s, didn't get a lot of fanfare. It was a PG-13 3D movie about sharks. It was just so-so. A lot of people actually trashed it. You didn't really hear a lot of people talk about it. This is not mentioned in the pantheon of shark attack movies in the summertime. Like, it's just not. But I really liked this movie. There's an interesting tack this movie plays with because, okay, first of all, you're always focused on great white sharks. No, these are bull sharks. Freshwater bull sharks. That's a really cool tact. Like, already it's like, okay, we're moving out of the ocean. It's not a great white. We've seen that done a million times before. So that premise, I was already in. And again, it's PG-13, so it doesn't have a lot of the gore and the viscera that I would want from a shark attack movie. But I actually have a really good time with this movie. I think it is just harmless fun. Again, it's not a great movie. It's not going to win any awards. And it's a guilty pleasure for a reason, because it's not something you just broadcast all the time about how you like the movie. But I like the movie. I think it's fun. I think it's an easy summertime watch. And I feel like if you haven't seen it and you like shark attack movies, give it a shot. You can do much worse. I'm looking at you, Cruel Jaws. Next up is going to be one I have talked about a few times, but never dedicated a video or anything to, and that is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. Look, I have always liked this movie, and I'll just say, there are a million warts here. A lot of people can't even get past the fact that it's Roy Burns and it's not Jason Voorhees. Like, that already is a non-starter for them. They're like, oh, nope, I'm out. Guys, you know I'm not in love with the Friday the 13th franchise. There's a couple movies in it that I absolutely love, but overall, it's just fine to me. This is one of those that I really find myself going back to and rewatching a lot. There's a lot of characters in this movie that suck, and that's not even really the point. I like Roy. I think he's kind of vicious. I think he's mean. I like the way that he lumbers around. He's a physically imposing person. I really, really dig the aesthetic of this movie. It's very dirty. It's very cheap. And obviously that's because the director came from an adult, film background. So there's a little bit less professionalism going on here. And if you haven't read Crystal Lake Memories or watched the documentary, I implore you to do both because you hear a lot of wild shit that happened on the set of this movie. But there's something about it that I like a lot. It's very bare bones. It's very basic. But in its basic presentation, it gives you exactly what you could want. Look, there's some mean kills in here. There's some beautiful women and very memorable moments. And at the end of the day, it's a nice twist on a franchise that at that point, you'd seen 4 movies. Jason Voorhees was your guy. You think he's dead. How can we do it again? They did it pretty well. I don't know. Look, it's a cheap movie, but I'm a cheap lay for some of this stuff. Next up is going to be Transformers Age of Extinction, but I'll just say Transformers as a whole. Like the Jurassic Park movies, I am such an easy lay with this stuff. Transformers, I'm in. There has not been a live-action Transformers movie I didn't like. Now, some of them to varying degrees. Some of them I'm just like, you know what, it's fine. Some of them I love. I love Age of Extinction. I absolutely love this movie. It is my favorite Transformers film. Having said that, it's a guilty pleasure because, one, I know that technically there's a lot of issues with the film, as there are with all the Transformers films. And it's the 4th one. This one got panned, okay? This one, by critics and fans alike, was panned. I don't understand it because I feel like it has probably the most sensical plot of all of the live-action Transformers movies, at least the Bayformers. I feel like the plot makes a ton of sense. It's a damn near 3-hour-long movie, so they really flesh it out. There's a lot about this movie that I just feel like I don't understand how this one was the one most hated by critics until The Last Night came along. But this one is my favorite. But the series as a whole is just a guilty pleasure for me because it's become a meme to where it's like, oh, it's just explosions and hot girls and cool cars and stuff. There's nothing of substance there. The stories make no sense. They all make sense to me. Whether they're not logical, but they make sense. So I've never understood that argument. But like when these movies came out or started coming out, I was a teenager. So do you want to see giant robots fighting, sick cars driving, and hot girls? Yeah? Like, what? Of course Transformers is a guilty pleasure of mine. And I'll scream it from the rooftops till I'm dead. Love this series. Can't get enough of it. But Age of Extinction is my favorite. And the last guilty pleasure I want to talk to you guys about today is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. I put this in a guilty pleasure list because it's not one of the best movies in my collection. Like, even if I enjoy the movie, which I do, but I don't love the movie. So it's got to go in guilty pleasure because I like the movie. I feel like it gets unfair criticism sometimes. Look, let's just call a spade a spade. Jackie Earle Haley is much better than he got credit for. The problems were the CGI and the writing, not him. Did we need a remake? No, but everything was getting remade. So it's going to happen. You might as well do it. Did we need Rooney Mara to be the lead? No, it should have been Katie Cassidy, but at least Katie Cassidy's in it a little bit. Look, this movie has a lot of warts. There's a lot about it that seems like a soulless cash grab. There's also a lot about this movie that's actually kind of interesting. I just wish they'd delivered on some of it, like the idea that Freddy was innocent for 2/3 of the movie to, the end where they're like, just kidding. Or, Katie Cassidy, you think she's the lead, and then they're like, she's not the lead, she's dead. There's a lot about this movie I really liked. I really did. The micronaps, it's a really cool addition to this series. There's a lot to not like. Rooney Mara, it's a soulless performance. She doesn't care. And it's clear. And she cannot anchor this movie. It is a huge mistake. It's a detriment to the film. Some of the CGI is not good. Some of the writing is not good. And, again, to that point, going back on what you had been setting up the entire time and going, just kidding, that's not actually what's happening. It's bullshit. And it's offensive to anybody that was actually buying into that new premise. All of that said, what did you just hear there? Pros and cons. No matter what anybody says, there's pros about this movie. But I know it's not popular to like the movie. So, it's a guilty pleasure. I do enjoy this movie. I probably watch it once a year or so, year and a half, because I have a good time with it. It was the first and only Nightmare on Elm Street movie that I got to see in theaters. I want that to change very soon, but Lord knows if that'll ever happen. So there's nostalgia here. I enjoy the movie, but I understand it's a guilty pleasure because technically there's a lot of problems. So those are some of my favorite guilty pleasures from my collection. If you guys liked this video, I will do another one. But I've got to hear from you. So sound off in the comment section about some of these movies I held up, and I want to hear your thoughts on them. Am I insane? Or do a lot of you agree and kind of like these movies too? Discuss it and everything else down below with me in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate you stopping in at the Lost River Drive-In. This is Nick, and I'm pulling out.